Welcome to the Cala Builders Podcast. Have you ever stared at your garage, past the dusty boxes in the parked car, and wondered if that space could be the secret to unlocking your dream home?
It's a great question because honestly, it's arguably the single most underutilized real estate asset in the country right now.
Right. You know exactly the space we're talking about. It's the architectural afterthought of Southern California. Just a concrete box where holiday decorations go to slowly disintegrate.
Yeah, and where, frankly, modern SUVs barely even fit in the first place. I mean, homeowners tend to view the garage as just this static storage unit.
Oh, totally. A glorified shed.
Exactly. We rarely look at it as a structural foundation that is, well, already largely paid for and just waiting to be adapted.
And changing that perception is exactly our mission today.
Okay.
We're taking a deep dive into a really comprehensive stack of materials from Cala Builders.
Which is going to be fascinating to dig into.
Yeah, and for those unfamiliar, they are a premier general contractor based right here in Los Angeles. So specifically, we're looking at their July 2026 guide. It's titled, Can You Convert a Garage to a Bedroom in Los Angeles?
A very timely topic for a lot of people in LA.
For sure. So our objective here is to strip away the guesswork. We really want to demystify the hard costs, the zoning mechanics, and, just the physical realities of transforming a vehicle depot into high-end livable space in Southern California.
Because there's a lot of misinformation out there about what you can and can't do.
Right. So whether you live in Woodland Hills, Calabasas, Pasadena, or Santa Monica, we want to help you figure out if this is the real estate hack that maximizes your property.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Starting with the literal groundwork. Is tearing up your garage actually a viable move? Like, mathematically speaking?
Yes, it is entirely viable, and, more importantly, it is highly efficient. When you look at the economics of construction in Los Angeles right now, the numbers overwhelmingly favor adapting existing structures, just because everything else is so expensive.
Exactly. We're navigating a market where raw land and, expanded footprints are prohibitively expensive, so homeowners are forced to look inward to maximize their current lot.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, and converting a garage represents one of the, I would say, highest leverage ways to add square footage, because you bypass the single most brutal phase of ground-up construction.
Which is what? The foundation.
Right. Pouring a new foundation.
I want to dig into the mechanics of that. Because when a homeowner commissions a traditional home addition, they're paying for heavy machinery to, excavate soil. Right.
Yeah, excavation soil composition tests.
Paying engineers for those tests, laying rebar, and then just waiting weeks for concrete to cure before a single piece of wood is even framed.
That is the traditional nightmare, yes. I mean, the subgrade work alone can easily consume a quarter of your budget and your timeline.
Wow, a quarter of the budget just on dirt and concrete.
Literally. But with a garage conversion, the concrete slab, the exterior framing, and the roof structure, well, they're already in place.
Right, you're already on it.
Exactly. You are effectively fast-tracking a project straight to the framing and utility phases. So, to put some numbers to it, adapting a standard detached single-car garage instantly nets you somewhere between 200 to 400 square feet of interior space.
200 to 400 square feet is a massive tactical advantage. I mean, in a market where the price per square foot is constantly climbing, that amount of space dictates whether you get a dedicated private office or a genuine primary suite.
It's the difference between feeling cramped and feeling like you actually have room to breathe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But looking at the Cala Builders materials, it is very clear this isn't a project you just hand off to a guy with a truck and a drywall saw.
No, absolutely not.
They heavily emphasize this design-build model for the greater LA area. Let's break down why that structure matters. Because, from what I understand, the traditional construction model, where you hire an architect first, then shop those plans to independent builders, it just seems incredibly fraught with friction.
Friction is the perfect word for it, actually. I mean, the traditional model almost guarantees conflict.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. An independent architect will draw a beautiful plan that, unfortunately, often ignores real-world structural limitations or, budget constraints.
Right, they're just drawing the dream version.
Exactly. Then, an independent contractor tries to build it, realizes a load-bearing wall cannot be moved exactly as drawn, and suddenly, bam! The homeowner is hit with a $15,000 change order.
Oh, that is painful. Just a massive surprise bill.
Yeah, it happens all the time. But the design-build model eliminates that gap. A company like Cala operates as a synchronized unit. You have Mehdi Abadat, the owner, who is leveraging over 30 years of field experience with a strict mandate to, build things correctly from day one.
Right. They aren't guessing.
No guessing. And he is operating in tandem with Shaheen Etrafi, the lead project manager. So Shaheen ensures the logistical gears from the very first city permit to the final coat of paint turn without delays.
It's essentially like a surgical team approach.
That's a great analogy, actually.
Yeah, like the surgeon, the anesthesiologist, and the nurses are all communicating in the exact same room rather than, mailing instructions to each other across town.
Which is usually how the traditional model feels.
Right. But I have to play devil's advocate here on the core premise. Because Los Angeles is fundamentally a car-dependent sprawl.
We do love our cars here.
We really do. If a homeowner executes this brilliant design-build strategy and gains 400 square feet, they permanently lose their dedicated off-street parking.
They do, yes.
In a city where street parking requires a spreadsheet to avoid street-sweeping tickets, is losing that garage really a smart long-term play? What happens to the car?
It's a fair question. It is a trade-off, certainly. But we really have to look at how modern homeowners are actually living. Legally, yes. The moment that space is permitted for human habitation, its designation as a parking structure vanishes.
Oof. Gone.
Gone. But pragmatically, most families offset this by utilizing their existing driveway for tandem parking, or they construct a simple carport.
Oh, okay. So the car isn't just banished to the street necessarily.
Right. The calculation is pretty simple when you break it down. A vehicle is designed to withstand the elements. It's fine outside.
Right. It's made of metal and glass.
Exactly. But your aging parents or your remote work setup, they require a climate-controlled secure envelope. When you weigh the utility of a car sitting indoors versus a human utilizing an extra room daily, the human space wins the economic argument every single time.
Okay, that makes the priority shift very clear. You're basically trading a roof for your Honda for a roof over a new home office.
That's exactly it.
But once a homeowner makes that psychological shift, they immediately hit a massive financial fork in the road.
A very big fork, yes.
Because you can either build a standard extra room, or you can build a fully autonomous accessory dwelling unit, an ADU. And the cost disparity between these two paths is kind of staggering.
It is significant, definitely.
Let's analyze the first option first, the basic conversion. What does that actually look like?
So the basic conversion is strictly expanding your home's living space within the garage's existing footprint. We're talking about framing out the interior walls, adding basic electrical circuits for outlets and lighting, and, installing finishes like drywall and flooring.
Just making it a normal room.
Right. And according to the data we're reviewing, this path generally requires an investment of about $25,000 to $45,000.
Which is relatively accessible, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a homeowner could theoretically leverage cash reserves or tap into a minor home equity line of credit to fund that.
Exactly. It's a very common way to finance that level of project.
But then we look at the second option, the full ADU. The guide states an ADU conversion rockets up to anywhere between $70,000 and $125,000, sometimes more, depending on custom finishes.
Oh, easily more if you want luxury finishes.
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. If I just want a private space for my in-laws to visit during the holidays, or like a secluded desk away from the kids, why on earth would I spend nearly triple the amount, an $80,000 gap, just to add a kitchenette and a toilet? Is the ROI really there for that?
It's a great question, and the cost gap is driven by the severe logistical realities of independent utility infrastructure. Adding a bathroom and a kitchen isn't just about, buying appliances and some nice tile.
Right. It's not just a trip to Home Depot.
Not at all. It requires trenching through your yard to tie a new sewer line into the main house's lateral pipe. And that pipe is often deeply buried and complicated by decades of tree root growth.
Oh, man. Trenching sounds expensive.
It is. Furthermore, a standard home's electrical panel is usually like 100 or 150 amps. Adding a second kitchen with an electric range, a dedicated water heater, and a separate HVAC system almost universally triggers a mandatory heavy up.
A heavy up, like upgrading the main panel.
Exactly. Upgrading to a 200 amp or even 320 amp main panel, you are pulling new heavy gauge wire straight from the city's power grid.
Wow. So you aren't just decorating a room, you are literally building the subterranean vascular system of a second house.
Precisely. You are building a mini house. And that leads to the ROI justification. A basic bedroom conversion is highly functional, but legally, the city views it as just another room in your house.
Okay, so you can't rent it out.
Right. It cannot be legally rented out to a tenant as a self-contained apartment, but a fully permitted ADU. That fundamentally alters your property's zoning classification.
Interesting. So it's not just a single-family home anymore.
Exactly. It transforms a single-family asset into an income-generating multi-unit property.
Which completely changes how lenders and appraisers calculate your equity.
It does. It really does. A permitted ADU allows for legal short-term or long-term rental income. Alternatively, if you're looking at true multi-generational living, it provides total autonomy for aging parents. It preserves their dignity and independence in a way a spare bedroom down the hall simply cannot.
That's a really good point. Privacy matters.
It matters a lot. Because of that income potential and flexibility, the long-term resale value added to the property generally eclipses that initial $125,000 investment.
Wow. Okay, there is a critical variable in the Cala Builders Guide regarding these costs that I want to unpack, though. Because the material notes that the physical footprint, whether it's a 200-square-foot one-car garage or a 400-square-foot two-car garage, actually matters far less to the final budget than the baseline condition of the structure.
That is a very common misconception.
Right. I think people assume smaller automatically means proportionally cheaper. But the physics of construction don't work that way, do they?
They absolutely do not. The structure's existing condition is the great equalizer. Let's look at the concrete slab, for example.
Okay, the floor.
Right. A garage built in, say, 1950, was designed solely to hold the static weight of a vehicle. It rarely has a vapor barrier installed beneath it.
Because cars don't care about a little moisture.
Exactly. But over decades, that unsealed concrete acts like a sponge, drawing moisture up from the soil through capillary action.
Which explains why older garages always have that faint, damp, musty smell in the winter.
That's the exact reason. So if a contractor just throws laminate flooring over that 1950s slab, the moisture will warp the floors and breed mold within months.
Yikes. So what do you have to do?
Well, a proper conversion might require extensive epoxy moisture barriers. Or, in severe cases of structural cracking, you might be completely excavating the old slab and pouring a new one that actually meets modern residential load and insulation codes.
So even if it's a tiny one-car garage?
Right. If your small garage requires a full slab replacement and a new electrical drop from the street, it will cost significantly more than a huge two-car garage that already has a flawless foundation and an upgraded sub-panel.
That makes total sense, which actually transitions us perfectly into the bureaucratic reality of this process.
Ah, yes, the red tape.
The red tape. So you have the financing secured, you understand the underground logistics, and you know what you're building. But you're operating in Los Angeles.
Which is its own beast.
Truly. Transforming a structure meant for Fords into a structure meant for humans means navigating a labyrinth of municipal codes. The primary hurdle highlighted in the materials is California's Title 24 compliance. What is that?
Title 24 is the state's energy efficiency mandate. And I'll tell you, it is arguably the most rigorous energy code in the entire country.
Really? More than anywhere else?
Oh, by far. When you change the use case of a garage, you trigger an avalanche of modern compliance standards. The state dictates the exact thermal resistance, the R value of the insulation you must pack into the walls and ceiling.
So you can't just throw some pink fiberglass in there and call it a day.
No, absolutely not. It also mandates stringent glazing requirements for any new windows, meaning you're typically required to use dual-pane, argon gas-filled glass with low emissivity coatings just to block solar heat gain.
Wow. It sounds like putting a spacesuit on your garage. You have to seal it, insulate it, and completely control the climate.
That's basically what it is.
But I guess it makes sense because a garage is essentially an uninsulated wooden tent sitting on a heatsink of a concrete slab.
Exactly. If you don't aggressively manage that thermal envelope, the space will be an oven in August and a freezer in January, which puts massive strain on the local power grid when you try to heat or cool it.
And managing that temperature brings us to the HVAC requirements. Because city code mandates permanent heating and cooling for a legally habitable space, right?
Correct. It has to be permanent.
But the instinct for many homeowners is to simply, run new ductwork from their main house's central air system right out into the garage.
It's the most common instinct, but the guide points out that almost never works.
Right. If I think about the physics of airflow, trying to push cold air from a central unit at the front of a house through an additional 40 feet of ducting out into a detached garage, it sounds like trying to blow out a candle through a garden hose.
That is a perfect visualization. The pressure loss would be massive.
The air would just barely trickle out by the time it gets there.
Exactly. But the bigger issue is capacity. The main house's condenser and air handler were specifically calibrated for the original square footage of that house.
Oh, so they literally aren't strong enough.
Right. Adding 400 square feet of untempered space just overloads the system. It shortens its lifespan and results in a garage that never actually reaches a comfortable temperature anyway.
So what's the solution?
This is why the industry standard for these conversions is the installation of independent, ductless mini-split systems.
Like those units you see mounted high up on the wall.
Exactly. They require no ductwork, they operate with incredible energy efficiency, and they allow the ADU to have completely autonomous climate control.
Which is great if you have a tenant that can just control their own air.
Exactly. And engineering that autonomy requires serious architectural foresight. The guide emphasizes how the Cala Design Build team handles this internally. You have Argavan Ebadat, the senior lead designer, and she isn't just picking out paint colors.
Right, she's actually designing the function.
She is actively running the complex Title 24 energy calculations, so the architectural plans pass the city's initial plan check without a hitch.
Which is crucial, because an aesthetically stunning architectural rendering that gets rejected by the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety is just an expensive piece of paper.
It really is. You need a design that intrinsically understands the code.
Right. And you also have a team navigating a very specific, almost hidden health hazard regarding air quality.
Yes, this is a big one.
We discussed the moisture in the concrete, but the Cala materials talk about the toxic legacy of the space itself, which I found fascinating. Decades of a vehicle sitting in a closed box creates a massive environmental residue.
It is a hazard that DIY conversions almost always ignore. Think about the life cycle of a garage. For 30 or 40 years, vehicles have dripped motor oil onto the porous concrete.
Right, there's always a stain on the floor.
Always. And they've emitted carbon monoxide into the unsealed rafters. Every time a car pulled in, it kicked up microscopic brake dust and tire particulate, which just settled right into the framing.
Gross. So you are basically trying to build a clean room inside a heavily polluted industrial site.
That is a very accurate way to frame it. You cannot simply put up drywall over contaminated framing and call it a bedroom.
Because you'd just be breathing that in while you sleep.
Exactly. The space requires deep remediation, aggressive sealing of the envelope, and specialized mechanical ventilation to ensure the indoor air quality actually meets residential health standards.
Wow.
And this is where Cala's licensed in-house experts come into play. You have Elia Ebadat pulling the heavy electrical permits to ensure the ventilation systems are powered safely, and Mirdad Mogharibi ensuring the complex plumbing tie-ins don't create sewer gas leaks in the new structure.
Which brings up a very stark scenario. We are talking about tens of thousands of dollars in hidden infrastructure. Sewer trenching, vapor barriers, Title 24 glazing, mechanical ventilation.
It adds up.
It does.
Yeah.
So for the highly capable weekend warrior who watches a few tutorials, it is incredibly tempting to just quietly buy some insulation at the hardware store, throw up drywall on a Saturday, wire a few outlets, and completely bypass the city's permitting department to save like 40 grand.
It is very tempting for a lot of people.
So what does this all mean for them? What actually happens if someone decides to take the unpermitted route?
I have to issue a calm but very serious warning here. It is a catastrophic financial risk.
Really? Catastrophic?
Yes. An unpermitted conversion might function perfectly well for a few years, but it is fundamentally a ticking time bomb. The explosion usually happens the moment you attempt to sell the property or, heaven forbid, you have to file an insurance claim.
Oh, wow. Because if an unpermitted electrical splice arcs inside the wall and starts a fire?
The homeowner's insurance carrier will investigate. They'll pull the city records, realize the bedroom doesn't legally exist, and deny the entire claim, leaving the homeowner completely bankrupt.
That is terrifying.
It is. But insurance denial is the worst-case scenario. The most common scenario is the appraisal crisis.
What happens there?
Well, when you try to sell the home, the buyer's appraiser will check the square footage against the county tax records. If the county says the house is 1,500 square feet, but the appraiser measures 1,900 square feet because of this rogue garage conversion.
The bank won't lend on it.
Right. The bank will refuse to finance the buyer's loan.
And then the city gets notified.
Exactly. Once the city's code enforcement is alerted to unpermitted habitable space, they issue an order to comply. They will literally force the homeowner to tear down the drywall just to expose the framing and electrical for inspection.
So you have to destroy your own hard work.
Yes. And if the work isn't up to modern code, And let's be honest, DIY work rarely meets Title 24 standards. The city will force you to demolish it entirely and return it to a functioning garage.
Unbelievable.
You lose the money you spent building it, and you pay a massive penalty to tear it down. The rules surrounding insulation, structural headers, and electrical loads, they are not bureaucratic suggestions. They are the bare minimum requirements to prevent structural collapse and electrical fires.
That makes a ton of sense. Attempting to circumvent the system ultimately costs double what it would have taken to just hire professionals in the first place.
Almost every time.
This entire deep dive really illustrates the chasm between having a cool idea and actually executing it safely. So, to synthesize everything we've mapped out today, converting a garage in Los Angeles is undeniably one of the smartest strategic shortcuts to expanding a property's footprint.
Without a doubt.
Right. Whether a homeowner allocates $25,000 to construct an isolated, quiet workspace, or they strategically leverage $125,000 to build a self-sustaining ADU, they're transforming dormant concrete into active equity.
But the mechanism for unlocking that equity is rigorous compliance.
Right. You can't fake it.
No. You have to overcome the physics of a concrete slab, you have to satisfy the energy demands of Title 24, and you must navigate complex zoning ordinances. The only sustainable way to achieve that is by utilizing a synchronized, licensed team.
Like a design-build firm.
Exactly. A firm like Cala Builders doesn't just swing hammers. They architect the logistics, they manage the municipal red tape, and they ensure that when the final inspection is signed off, the space is legal, safe, and wildly profitable for the homeowner.
It's about peace of mind.
It is. If you're listening right now and you're feeling squeezed for space, I strongly encourage you to look out your window at that garage. It's not just a storage unit for old holiday decorations. It is untapped potential that could change how you live or generate wealth for your future.
It is hiding right in plain sight. As we wrap up this exploration, I want to leave you with one final thread to pull on regarding the broader impact of this trend. We have spent the last few minutes analyzing the microeconomics. Your property, your family, your budget.
The immediate impact, yeah.
Right. But zoom out and look at the macro level of Southern California.
Yeah.
If tens of thousands of LA homeowners systematically convert their garages into ADUs over the next decade just to solve the housing crunch, what happens to the infrastructure?
That's a huge shift.
Yeah. How does the permanent, widespread loss of off-street private parking reshape the physical fabric of our neighborhoods? Could the sheer density created by this ADU boom actually be the catalyst that breaks the gridlock and forces the end of car-centric culture in Southern California?
That is a fascinating thought.
It really is. The next time you stare at that dusty concrete box, realize you aren't just looking at a future bedroom. You might be looking at the very mechanism that changes the entire city. Thanks for exploring this deep dive with us.